Save the Semantics, episode 162. It is November 28th, 2021. My name is Myro. This is the premiere. This is your one-stop shop for NBA news, analytics, drama, all that sort of stuff. It's just, I just got everything going on here. So I don't know. I don't know why there hasn't been that many people listening, but this is the only quality shit right here. Excuse me, Jesus. Yeah. The first and only NBA podcast to ever exist. So we're talking basketball, baby. And that's all we're gonna be doing today. No, we're gonna be talking about other stuff. Other stuff I have on my mind and whatnot, the usual, but there's a decent amount of basketball that I can discuss. And I would say this past week I've been watching a lot of basketball. I've been watching a lot of basketball related content. And yeah, there's a lot, man. I'm trying to think, maybe, I'm not really up to date in other sports, so I don't really know what's going on in the realm of, soccer, football, whatever. But, is there really any other league, like the NBA, where there's just, some kind of drama going on every single, week, every single day, what it feels like, right? There's always some shit going on, right? There's coaches getting fired, there's players butting heads, getting into fights, off-court drama, right? There's always something that's happening. I'm trying to think of any other sport that's a thing, but I guess I'm not up to date in other sports, so I'm sure there is, but it's just there's always something going on. So it's always entertaining. Even if you're not really a basketball fan, if you're into some drama shit, I just feel like the NBA is right up your alley. If you're into reality TV and that kind of stuff, the NBA is the place to go, man. Just fuck all the keeping up with the Kardashians shit. Just watch basketball. Just keep up with the NBA, man. It's just always some entertaining Twitter thread, Twitter headline. It's great. It's super entertaining. So yeah, past week there's been a lot of good games. There was the triple overtime Kings-Lakers game that happened on Friday, I believe, in which the Lakers lost. Which is very entertaining. It wasn't a particularly good game. It just wasn't a very well played game, but it was very entertaining from an outsider. And also, being a Warriors fan, it's very entertaining to see the Lakers lose. So that was a lot of fun. Just kind of seeing, I think there's a bit of a consensus from other non-Laker fans as well, just kind of seeing that team collapse, right? Just based on name recognition, right? Just on paper, you would think that it would be, you would think they would have some level of success, but no, they've lost. They're currently below 500. They've had one of the easiest schedules, theoretically speaking, in the league. And they have one of the greatest players of all time, who is, getting old and up there, and he has been injured for, a significant portion of the season so far. But they also have another great player in Anthony Davis. And another MVP level player with Russell Westbrook. It just doesn't, they should be doing pretty well, but they just don't have, there's just a lack of cohesion. there's some criticisms that I heard from like the Lakers commentary, um, like Lakers post game after that game, from like James Worthy and Robert Ory. They were just talking about just they're not like focused and stuff like that. I don't really care that much, but it's just, it's just entertaining to see that kind of shit fall apart a little bit, right? I still think they'll manage to squeeze into the playoffs, but like last year they were a first round exit. They lost to the Suns, the runner up to the finalists. And I just don't, yeah, it's just hard to see them making it very far if they do make the playoffs, right? So, yeah, I don't know. Aside from that, Warriors are doing fantastic. They're currently playing the Clippers right now, but I'm not watching the game. I'm going to catch up to it in the fourth quarter. It's the third quarter right now, I believe. So, I'm going to catch the game on the tail end. But the Warriors are doing very well. They've only lost 2 games in the season. They're looking like how they looked in like the 2014-2015 season when they first won their championship. Everything just running incredibly smooth. When they have been down, they always just manage to come back around, right? They were down by 20 against the Sixers, and then they ended up beating them by 20. So like a 40-point turnaround, which is crazy. So yeah, things are going very well, and I'm very happy about that. I think they just look. There's no other team right now that looks as I'm repeating myself, but as cohesive, as fluid as they do, both offensively and defensively, right? I think I would argue that like maybe Miami, or maybe I'm trying to think of other like very strong defensive teams, but they're just kind of they're up there in both categories, so it's hard to overlook that, and when you watch them play, you're like, wow, this is like beautiful. It really is, like I'm incredibly spoiled. I am incredibly spoiled as a Warriors fan, just seeing this type of play and action, not just this year, but over the last 5 to 7 years. I've just been incredibly fortunate to have been a fan of this period of time where I get to see, the greatest shooter of all time and some of the greatest teams of all times play. So I'm like trying not to, like, because once this time passes, like it's just kind of be like, man, I can't even believe that was like that team was actually real. You know what I mean? Like this is sort of that, this is the level where other teams want to be at, right? Like, of course you have your superstars, right? You have Curry, Clay's looking to come back sometime within the next couple of months. You got Draymond, but then you got all these other role players. You got these other pieces that contribute, and they all complement each other so well. Like it's just like it's incredible. It's so fun to watch too, and they just look like they're having fun while doing it as well. Like it's just kind of it's a beautiful thing to watch. And it's just like there's just no other team that's like them right now, I feel. You know what I mean? So just just incredibly fortunate to be, part of the fan base for these last 10 plus years. And then just kind of in the middle of things, right? Like just seeing a championship, a legacy team kind of, brew. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun, man. I've been really enjoying it. And I'm hoping to catch the tail end of the game with the Clippers today. So far it looks to be pretty even. I don't think we kind of won pretty handedly the first time around. So I didn't really expect to be the same result. The Clippers have their they have their shit together right now, and they're looking pretty good. So it's gonna be. I think it's gonna go kind of down to the wire. So I'm excited to see that. In terms of other games, other teams, I didn't watch it live, but I watched the highlights. Yesterday there was the Timberwolves and the Sixers game that went to double overtime. A lot of overtime games. And this one was just based on what I seen from the highlights was pretty exciting. Shout out to the Timberwolves. They're looking kind of like they're sort of righting the ship a little bit. I've had my I've kind of been up and down on them because like earlier on they looked really good, and then they kind of fell into a bit of a hole, and now they're sort of back up again. Right now they're at 500. They're 10-10, I believe. So, and the games that they have won in the last like 10 games or so, they've like blown out teams. Aside from, yesterday's game, they've like blown out teams. They beat Memphis by like 40 something. They beat the Lakers by like 20. So yeah, they definitely have potential to be, a play-in playoff team. I want to see that, man. I want to see that for Minnesota. They've gone through a lot of shit, man. I think this team has a lot of they have a lot of good pieces, and if they can kind of continue to make things work, they can be. I think they can make some noise. Like I think like hypothetically or theoretically, whatever, they would likely be like an eighth seed, right? And in that case, they would be maybe playing us or the Suns, depending on how the standings kind of rank up at the end of the season. But yeah, I'm excited to I want to see them. I want to see them have some success because they've just been a struggling franchise for so many years. And I think they just their players they have a lot of likable and like interesting players. They're very much like characters, like D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, like Cat. They all have like a very vibrant and kind of likable personality, right? They have something going for them, and I hope that kind of carries through the rest of the season. What else? What other teams are out there worth talking about? I guess the Suns, right? Suns are on a 17-game winning streak. Pretty fucking crazy. They beat the Nets yesterday pretty handedly. I did not watch the highlights from that yet. Maybe I'll check it out just to kind of see how they're playing. I haven't really watched that many Suns games. But it looks like they've kept most of their roster from their championship run this past season, so I think it kind of makes sense that they've kind of been able to kind of keep that up. And of course, like if you make it to that level, like you want to go back for sure. They were right there. They were right there. You know what I mean? So of course you want to go back, right? And I think speaking from the perspective of a Warriors fan, I think it's good. They're going to be tough. They're going to play them this week twice. And I think those are going to be some difficult games for sure. Essentially to determine at this point in time who's going to be number one in the Western Conference and in just the NBA in general. So that's going to be exciting. It's going to be a tough matchup. It's going to be probably our hardest game so far. So I'm excited for that. That's something to look forward to later this week. Other teams to talk about. I think it's just so there's a lot. There's just so much that happens all the time. Like it's very hard to keep up. this was last week, right? Last week there was the, Isaiah Stewart and LeBron James altercation where LeBron essentially punched Isaiah Stewart when what he says is inadvertently, but it looked pretty intentional from his, Stewart's perspective. He said it was intentional, and just looking at the replay, it looked like very, like it looked kind of like a calculated hit from LeBron. So, and I guess they're playing tonight as well. So that's something to look forward to. That's gonna be pretty exciting. Um, yeah, there's just so much that just goes around all the time, and it's just like it's pretty hard to keep track of this, which is why there's always some, there's always a reporter on some random ass story for, whatever reason. I'm trying to think of like a headline that popped up recently that was just like, wait, what the fuck? Oh yeah, there's the so Enes Kanter has been very vocal about his I feel like criticism is not even, I don't know, I don't think it's the right word, but he's been very vocal about just calling out the NBA and its financial contractual relationship that it has with China. He's directly called out China, all this sort of stuff, and which is I think it's very bold of him to do that. Of course, I think it's just when you're just, you know you're putting yourself in a position where you could potentially affect your career and your general well-being, right? I think it's commendable for sure. I think it's cool that he's using his platform in a sense to, kind of, which is, hopefully to spread the word of this sort of thing. The issue I feel is it's just so it's just so difficult for, I feel like, things to be done. You know what I mean? Like I can't even imagine to speak from his perspective, but it just doesn't. I just feel like it's hard to like change. It's hard to persuade certain things from happening. It's hard to persuade like an entire corporation from, you know, receiving large amounts of revenue from this entity, right? Like especially if they're large, if they're a large source of revenue, like China, right? That's where the NBA has a lot of its operations, and then you got its production in clothing and apparel and stuff like that. It's all kind of interlaced, interconnected. So it's hard to be like, hey, this is not okay. You know what I mean? Like it's very hard to just say that, and not, of course, not face any consequences, but also actually make a significant impact. And then there's also the fact that he is looking to like change his last name to Freedom, and it's like, come on, dude. This is like, this is Meta World Peace. This is Ron Artest all over again. Like, what does that actually do in that sense? Like, you're sort of like, you're giving yourself that name for the purpose of what exactly? Is it to show that you stand up for the freedom of certain people? Do you really need to change your name to do that? Like, I just don't understand. You know what I mean? I don't understand the reasoning behind it. Like, I can understand the I can understand maybe the process of it, but what's sort of your desired outcome out of that? I think when it comes to changing your name due to, say, if you want to represent your ancestral or your your sort of your cultural backgrounds, right? Like say if you're black and you don't have your last name is that of, you know, is based on like a European last name. It's not of your descent. Like I understand that reason, but that's a little different. I feel like, you know what I mean. If you're changing your name to Freedom, like it's just not. I just don't think it's the same effect as that. There's not really a whole lot of um, there's just not a whole lot of. I feel there's just not a whole lot of weight behind that. And what is it? It's just like, what does it do exactly? I mean, that's cool. You can do that, right? This is, you know, this is America. You can kind of do those sort of things, but it just doesn't. Other than it just kind of being a show of some sorts, it just doesn't. I just don't feel like it does a whole lot. But again, I'm not the one that's speaking out against a lot of these things. I just don't feel that it's the most effective in really doing a whole lot. But I mean, props to him, I guess. It's a very it's just a very complex and very what do you call it? It's just a very difficult situation to navigate. To call out an entire nation's practices, its humanitarian issues, the way it treats minorities, right? The I believe is the Uyghur Muslim minority group, right? There's the news of the concentration camps and everything like that. It's a lot to process. It's an issue that is difficult for someone that isn't really, you know, who isn't really in that space to tackle, you know what I mean? So it's just, I don't, what the fuck do you do, right? Like, what the fuck do you do as an individual? So I think a step that you could take if you were in Kanter's position is try to have a conversation of some sorts with the NBA. I know it's probably not going to lead to anything, but if you can try to, you know, if you can try to move or even stop funding operations in China, that could be a start. But again, it's very hard. I'm just saying this, like, it's very hard to actually put these things into action. You know what I mean? Maybe he's already done that, but I just feel like, just based on a very just based on a very basic perspective of just kind of seeing his Twitter posts, it just seems like he's saying these things without taking constructive actions to maybe putting a dent on the issue, right? If he wants to have, there was and of course you can criticize LeBron all you want. When the Lakers played the Celtics that one game, I think LeBron was talking about how he was willing to kind of talk to Kanter about these things, but Kanter didn't really do that, and that just kind of confused me. If you're doing all these things, if you're saying all these things out loud, and I'm hoping that this is a conversation. You know, I feel that this is supposed to lead to a conversation of sorts, but it just kind of he just kind of avoided it. It seems like. So I don't know. I hope that I hope he can make some kind of an impact. Like that would be great. But I don't. Again, freedom. Come on, dude. It's just like, that's not. It's just, what the fuck. People are still clowning on Meta World Peace. Like, this is the stupidest fucking name. You know what I mean? It's just it's dumb. It's just very. It just feels kind of childish, right? So yeah, that's kind of sort of how I've been feeling. Um, so yeah, again, kind of circling back. Those are some of the headlines that you'll see if you um, pay attention to the NBA. So again, if you're into that kind of thing, if you're into kind of all sorts of different types of news, whether it's like locker room drama or coaches getting fired or I guess international politics, check out the NBA. That's my pitch to you if you're not a fan of basketball. What else? I think that's all I kind of have to say. I mean, there's a lot more that I can kind of talk about in regards to the NBA, but that's all that I kind of have at the moment. In terms of myself, it's been a slow sort of week. This has sort of been my Thanksgiving break, so I'm gonna let this copter pass by. Give me just a moment. Anyways, yeah, this week has been my Thanksgiving break, which has been nice. I haven't really done a whole lot, which is both good and bad. Maybe not bad. I don't want to say it's bad, but I like to kind of I want to be, again, this is just kind of going back to everything that I've talked about within the last couple of months or whatever, but I just want to be more active in other ways. And I just felt like I haven't really done that. So it's good that I've kind of taken the time to relax in a sense. Maybe it's just the way I'm wired, but I just feel like I need to do more things. I'm just kind of, again, lacking in some areas of my current life. And I'm still kind of just sort of looking around, I guess. And maybe I think maybe instead of just kind of looking around, I should actually do something, right? Like, even if I don't necessarily like it, just take freshman college Myro's approach of just trying a bunch of shit out. You know what I mean? I just feel like I haven't really done that recently. It's been it's been what, 4 years more or less since I graduated. So things change, and so it's kind of difficult to kind of keep that up. I feel like there's a lot of work that you got to do in order to do that, including, I don't know, having like a consistent schedule, right? Having a consistent schedule, having other things outside of work to do. It's just kind of, it's just kind of difficult to do that. And I've been sort of reading up a lot, just around like Reddit mostly, about a lot of things, including like mental health and that sort of thing, about like sort of like the idea of like brain fog. And that's kind of very much the feeling, the sort of the condition that I have at the moment, where I'm sort of checked out. I'm not completely present. It feels like I'm just sort of in a haze a lot of the time, and I'm just kind of going through the motions. And I don't have any strong feelings about things one way or another. That's just that very much feels applicable to kind of how I'm feeling right now. Like, obviously things are going good in a sense, right? But I'm just sort of in a bit of a daze when it comes to just sort of my day-to-day sort of going about things, you know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of hoping for a little bit more. I think I'm just not taking really any actions I'm just not doing anything to make those changes right now. I think I don't know. I need to do some work in that sense. Maybe I'm being too hard on myself. I don't know. But I just, I just want to, I just want to add a little bit of just more vibrancy to my life. And I don't think that's, that's not going to necessarily fix my, just kind of feeling kind of, what's the word? What is that word called? What the fuck is it called? Is it neural? Where it's like neural? Neural, related to the nerve or the nervous system. No. What the fuck? I just heard that word recently and I felt that was very, a very good way of describing it. But yeah, again, I'm just struggling to kind of find another thing to kind of add to my, my current life. And it's just, there's just things that I have to consider when it comes to, I don't know, adding just some flavor of some sorts. I'm talking in circles. Yeah. I'm just kind of, today for instance, I kind of woke up a little late. Maybe it's exercise. Maybe it's just more consistent exercise. I'm still running, right? I'm still trying to run on a daily basis. But maybe I have to do something else to kind of add to that. But yeah, again, as always, it's a work in progress. I always have something that I can work on. And including for this podcast, like I think, the main purpose of this is primarily for me, right? And I feel that if I'm not able to kind of represent myself very well, then what's the point? I just want to be able to kind of speak clearer, be more concise in my thoughts and my feelings and everything like that. And so in regards to that, if I want to, chronicle my day-to-day shit, or my week-to-week, or my, month-to-month activities, and then, whatever, there's just certain things that I have to kind of work on to kind of be better for myself, and so I can kind of look back and be like, okay, I can understand how he's sort of feeling, or where he was at that point in time. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Be better for myself so that when I look back, I can be like, okay, I got it. I understand where you're coming from. And so that's probably going to do it. A little bit of, again, a little foggy this week, but that fog will go away eventually. This has been Save the Semantics, signing off.